Hey there, hello and welcome to my quick and dirty review of the Voigtlander Vito II. This is a really fun little 35mm camera. It was produced by Voigtlander between 1949 and 1954, and it belongs to a class of cameras called folders, and they're called folders because the lens and shutter mechanism deploys in this particular way right here. Where are they? Here we go. And you see that it has sort of this bellows material here, right here, which allows it to retract back into the body. I can close the clamshell, well, the clamshell door by pressing down these two keys, and then closing it up like so. And when it's closed up, it fits really neatly inside a pocket. You can fit this thing inside a jeans pocket or a coat pocket or a jacket pocket. It's actually very pocketable. So that's one of the fun aspects of this particular camera. And there weren't too many 35mm folders made. Most of these cameras with the folding mechanism, like I just showed you, were made in medium format. There were some made in 35mm, but not too many. And this is one of the more popular and one of the more available on today's secondhand market. These cameras are they're not that hard to find. They're around. Okay, so I've got a roll of film in here, and it's towards the end of the roll, and I'm going to sacrifice the last few frames just to show you the functionality of the camera, and then I'm going to unload the roll of film and show you how to do that. I have done a separate video on loading film into this camera, so please see the playlist on my channel simply called Loading Film, and where I demonstrate how to load a roll of film into this camera. Today I'm just going to go over basic operation in general. So the first thing we're going to do is deploy the shutter and lens arrangement, and we do that by pressing on that button right there, which releases the catch. And then I can open this up like so. When you open it up, it should click into place, so it stays stationary. And now we turn it around. We'll take a look at the top plate. And you'll notice that the top plate has these two knobs. This one has an A on it, this one has an R. A for advance, R for rewind. So when I advance the film, on this one the film's already advanced, I'm going to turn this knob in the direction of the arrow. When I rewind the film at the end of the roll, I will turn this knob in the direction of this arrow. However, as I advance the film, you'll notice that this knob here rotates in the direction opposite the arrow, because it's not rewinding, it's advancing. So you'll see this turn as I advance the film here. You'll also notice here's the frame counter, and this is an accessory shoe, a cold shoe. This is one of the variations on this model. There were a number of variations on this camera. One of the variations was the presence or absence of an accessory shoe. It happens to be a later version. I believe this camera was produced in 1954, and the later versions had the accessory shoe. Earlier versions did not. So, in order to take a picture on this camera, I need to advance the film, which I've already done. The film is advanced, but then I need to cock the shutter. So, some older cameras, including this one, separated the film advance and shutter cocking function, which was combined in most manual focus cameras of the late 20th century. So, for example, if you take a look at this Voigtlander Bessa R, you have the rapid wind lever here. Okay, and when I activate this lever, it does two things: it advances the film and it cocks the shutter. So those functions are combined in that one lever. In this camera, those functions are separated. So this dial advances the film, and then I have a lever here, right there, which I need to activate in order to cock the shutter. Another word about the shutter on this camera. So this camera has, I don't know if you can read that, it has what's called a synchro compour shutter. So maybe I can turn there we go, I can turn the shutter speeds, and, well, a little bit. So you can see on the bottom there it says compour. It actually says synchro compour shutter. So the compour shutter line was made by a company named Deckel, and they produced shutters in the mid-20th century. Most famously, their Compour line of shutters. And they were an independent third-party company. They sold shutters to a number of different camera manufacturers, and quite a few cameras from different manufacturers were sold with their shutters. But there was also another company called Gaultier, which produced a shutter called the Pronto or Prontor. And you can see that in many cameras of the period, including a number of models of the Vito II. So the two variations you find on the Vito II are, number one, whether or not it has the accessory shoe, and number two, which shutter is it equipped with. And whether or not the focusing is marked in meters or feet. That can vary between models as well. So let's talk about the shutters for a second. So on many cameras of this period and of this type would have the Prontor shutter. So you see this is a Prontor shutter. This is on a Zeiss Contina. And here's a Zeiss icon. This is a Zeiss icon Contina. You see the word Contina, that's the model of the camera. Prontor SVS, that is the model of the shutter. So this type of shutter was also available on the Vito as well. And on the Prontor shutters that were available with this Vito had top shutter speeds of 1/200th or 1/300th of a second. For example, this Prontor shutter here has a top shutter speed of 1/300th. And that was the Compor shutter, by comparison, has a top shutter speed of 500th. Okay, 1/500th of a second. And I'm going to set my shutter speed by lining up the shutter speed indication with that black index mark right there. So right now you can see it's set to 1/100th of a second. I turn this, now it's set to 1/250th and 1/500th, where I can go back all the way down to 1 second and B or bulb. Okay, so that's the shutter speed range on this camera, and that range varies depending upon the model of the shutter. So some of the Prontor shutters that Vito IIs were equipped with had a maximum shutter speed of either 1/200th or 1/300th, depending upon which version of the Prontor shutter it was using. This Compor Rapid shutter has a top shutter speed of 1/500th. Also, some of the Prontor shutters lacked some of the lower shutter speeds as well. So the shutter speed range was a variable on this camera. So if you're purchasing a Vito II, make sure you check out the shutter speed range so you know what you're getting, because they did vary from model to model, depending upon whether you got the Compor shutter or the Prontor shutter or an earlier or later version of one of those. Okay, so having said that, the film's already advanced. I'm now going to cock the shutter by taking this knob here, or this button, knob, lever, I guess it's the lever, and pulling down on it like so. That's it. And the shutter's cocked. Okay. The film is advanced, the shutter's cocked, the camera is ready to fire. The shutter release button is that right there. It looks like a bar along the side of the clamshell, but that is in fact the shutter release button. So, if I press that, it will release the shutter. There we go. And now I can advance the film, okay? Let's try and watch. You'll see this knob rotate in the opposite direction to the arrow, and this knob will rotate in the direction of the arrow as I advance the film. All right. And in fact, wow, hold on a second. Whoa, well that was the last frame. This camera will not advance any further. All right, that's it. That was the last frame. Very good. Okay, so I thought I had one or two frames left on there, but I guess that's the. You see the frame counter is reading 35, but when I loaded the film, I may have advanced 1 or 2 frames extra before manually resetting the frame counter. So that's one of the variables with a manually reset frame counter. And again, I talk about this in the loading film video, that after you load the film, you have to set the frame counter, which is done manually, as opposed to SLRs of the 60s and 70s, which had automatically resetting frame counters every time you open the back of the camera. All right, so I'm now at the end of this roll of film. So what am I going to do? I'm going to rewind it. So I can close this back up before I rewind it. Don't need that out there. And I release the film from the mechanism which prevents it from being rewound by pulling up on this lever right here. I'm going to pull up on that, and I'm going to hold it in place with Oops, see, because it'll snap back automatically. So I'm going to hold it in place with my thumb here as I rewind. And I'm going to rewind by pulling up on this, just like so. Okay, this is the halfway position. You don't want to remove it all the way. It can come out. You can do that, but you don't want to. Okay, so to rewind it, you just pull it up like so. If you pull it up all the way, then the teeth at the bottom, the fork, which mates with the film cartridge, disengages in it. You won't be able to rewind, so don't do that. You pull it up just like so you can get a good grip on it, and then just rewind it. And you're gonna wind the film back into the camera. And it's actually very comfortable. It's not hard to do. And when you reach the end of the roll, there will be a definite feeling. You will get a tactile sensation telling you that you have reached the end of the roll. It will be quite obvious to you when that happens. Not yet. Almost there. Does take just a minute. Here we go, and there. Okay, there. It's making a different noise, and I can feel the difference as I'm turning the wheel as well. Okay, so the film is now rewound back into the canister. I can put that down, and now I can remove that, or excuse me, replace that. And now I can open the back of the camera. And with this camera, there's no latch. There's no real. It's a really simple method of opening. You just take your fingernail and open up this lip right here. That's it. See that? That's all there is to it. Just take that and excuse me. Take that and open it up. And there you go. And there's your film. Now we pull this up all the way so that I can remove the cartridge. And that's it. And that is how you take a roll of film out of the Vito II. Okay, let's go over the rest of the features here. What else have we got? So one of the reasons that I left film in the camera to demonstrate the functioning of the shutter is that the Vito II will not dry fire. That is, in order to fire the shutter, you have to have film in it. That is, the film, as the film's advancing, is going to turn the teeth on this geared mechanism right here, and that needs to turn in order for the camera to release the shutter. Otherwise it won't fire. So if there's no film in the camera, there's nothing turning these gears, then you can't fire the shutter. So on the front of the camera, we see that it's got the color scope R 50mm f3.5 lens. All Vito II cameras had the color scope R 50mm f3.5 lens. This is a lens based on the Tessar design, the Zeiss Tessar design. It's a 4-element lens. It's really sharp. I'm very pleased with the pictures I've had from this camera. I will link down below to my Flickr album containing images from this camera. I'm very happy with the quality of the images and the sharpness. It's really quite impressive given the age of this camera. Scope R was the name of the lens formula, which was just basically the Tessar. And the color in front of it means that it's color corrected. That is, you can use it with color film, which you would not take for granted back in the 1950s, indicating that this was a coated lens. So it's a great lens. It works really well. I've been very impressed with it. Up on top, here's a little curious setting. Now you see there's where you sit. There's the lever for cognitive shutter. This is where you would plug in the cord from your flash unit. If you were to attach a flash unit to the cold shoe, you then need, because it's a cold shoe, not a hot shoe, you need to attach the cord to this port right there, which triggers the flash. And then you need to set this switch here either to M or X, depending upon which type of flash you're using. X would be for xenon flash or electronic flash. M, I think, is for flash bulbs, which are no longer made. And the curious thing is, I'm not sure which is the recommended setting if you're not using flash at all. I don't think it makes any difference. The owner's manual just talks about which type of flash accessory to use with the M and X setting, but it doesn't say which one to leave the camera on if you're not using flash. And frankly, I just haven't been paying attention to it. I had it on M, but it seems to be working fine. If you know more about that than I do, please do leave a comment. Is there a preferred setting for this camera when you're not using flash? Does it matter if you leave it on M or X? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. If I am, please let me know. The aperture of this lens goes from f3.5 to f16, and that is set with this lever right here. So here there's a set of aperture numbers with lines, and I'm going to line up the edge of that piece of metal to the line next to the aperture number to indicate aperture setting. There's f8, f5.6, okay, and there's f4, and finally f3.5. So this is how you set your aperture. Shutter speed, again, is done by this dial like so. Just showed you a minute ago, right, like so. Cocking the shutter right there, and that is, I think that about covers it. So here is your shutter release button. You also have an alternate shutter release button which fits a threaded cable, a cable release. So if you want to mount the camera on a tripod and trigger it remotely, you can use an old-fashioned cable release, which will screw right into that right there. And then you can trigger the camera remotely like so. So that's kind of neat. All right. And here I've got the cold shoe, which sometimes you can use for an external light meter. I like to use the Sekonic 208, and it's going to fit right like so. Yeah, there we go. Shoot, doggone it. Where is it? There we go. Nope. Okay. There. So it looks like this one's a little tight. Oh yeah, all right, so it is fitting, but it's just tight. All right, so I don't want to force it. Normally I actually don't use a light meter on this camera. I just use Sunny 16, and I don't want to force this because this is made of plastic, and if I force it then it could snap or break, and I don't want that to happen. So it just turns out that the accessory shoe on this particular camera is a little on the tight side, and when using plastic accessories, I want to be a little careful about that, so I'm not going to force it. Okay, here's your viewing window. There's really nothing to see inside the viewing window. There's no frame lines, no nothing, no meter. There's no light meter on this camera, so you have to use an external meter or Sunny 16 or something like that, or a light meter app on your phone. And I think that about covers it. What have we got on the bottom of the camera? There's that's how you deploy the clamshell. That's just a tripod mount, and that's just a little foot right there, so that actually you've got a little foot there and there and there, so that when you set the camera on a table, it's stable. If you set it on a flat surface, it will not wobble because it's got that little foot there, and actually a little one here and here as well. Okay. If you're looking for a 35mm camera, these are a lot of fun, and boy do they look cool. I mean, who's seen one of these? If you're under 40, you've never seen one of these. I mean, it's just kind of cool, and it doesn't just look cool, but it actually has a purpose. That is, it can fit in a pocket. It's genuinely can. Most other cameras of this class, they're small, but they're a little bulky, and you don't want this thing in your pocket. Whereas this camera right here will simply, you can just stick it in a pocket and then pull it out, open it up, and it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed using it. So I think that about covers the Voigtlander Vito II. I will put links down below to the owner's manual, the photographs I've taken with this camera, some other blog reviews. There are quite a few of the more popular classic camera bloggers have written reviews on this camera. Some of them are quite good, and I will link to those down below as well. There's actually a good bit of information available about this camera. If you're looking to get into 35 millimeter, you could do a lot worse. This is a fun little camera. It's got a nice sharp lens. It's available with a good range of shutter speeds depending upon the shutter that you get, and it just it fits neatly into your pocket. And I just don't think you can beat the cool factor on one of these old folders. I really don't. Forgive the anyway, don't mean to sound too much like a hipster, so if you'll forgive the cool factor talk, but I don't know, there's something to it. I think there really is. There's a reason we collect these old things, because they are kind of cool. All right, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you found this video interesting or amusing or informative or some combination thereof. If so, please do like, subscribe, and as always, check out the links down below. Thank you now. Take care. Bye-bye.